All right, everybody. So welcome back. So I would just wait for like roughly like 1 more minute before we begin. But we don't have any homework for last time. But today, after today, you'll be able to know how to work with database interaction, and you'll be able to create one of your first fully fledged web application using Flask as backend and SQL as database. All right, so welcome back to Introduction to Web Development with Python and JavaScript. So today you'll be able to have ability to build one of your own like fully fledged web application using Python's backend. And no, I didn't assign any homework for last week. Yeah. Yes, Kessler.
Wait, you didn't assign any homework?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a show and tell thing. If you did anything you want to share, feel free to share it. But I didn't like quote unquote formally assign anything. But if you did anything interesting with Flask, feel free to share it. Okay. All right. So yes, Vera.
Later, can I show something that I did with HTML?
You could share it now.
Oh, okay.
Let me stop my share and let me see. Do you have right to share it? Okay. You can share now.
Okay. Okay, so I created this website called the Nerdy Barrel Club.
Okay.
And it has a sign up thing. But then I didn't finish creating the whole website.
Okay.
But this is what I have so far.
This looks pretty cool. I love your CSS style. And if you want to, we'll talk about how to actually like create an account. So
okay.
Yeah, so that we'll talk about today. And then today what we'll work on is we'll actually build a oh yeah, here's your code. Do you mind if you explain your code for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I added a title and that shows up over here.
Okay, nice.
And then I also added this H1 tag. It shows up right there.
Okay. Looks like you also know how to do favicon. So like
yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I'm just going to annotate really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So this is favicon, and then this basically is similar to title. And then you could add this by add this line 7 here. This is how you could add an icon, favicon. That's what we usually calls it. It's like a little more visual description, basically. All right, yeah, you can continue. Nice job on that.
Yeah, so I got I searched up this Favicon Converter, and it's over here. Give me a second. Okay, so this is a Favicon Converter. You just find a picture online and you save it to your desktop and you download it here and then turn it into a Favicon thing. So yeah, that's my website.
Nice. So today we'll actually talk, this is actually a great example. So today we'll actually talk about how could you implement the authentication or create an account, basically. And then if you notice, so here is what we're going to do today. We're going to learn by doing an example. And then here's what we're going to do. It's basically a URL shortener. So you can shorten a huge long URL into a smaller URL, basically. So if I want to like paste in one of my Medium article here, and I want to submit it, you can see now it gives me a short version of the URL. And then if I just copy and then paste, you can see it's going to redirect me to that Medium page. So that's basically what we're going to try to implement today. And then we're also going to talk about database today as well. So SQL, structured query language as well. So it's going to be a lot of new stuff that's going to learn, but these are like one of the most fundamental ideas of backend development, database, and SQL. So SQL database, basically. And then to be even more specific, we're going to use PostgreSQL. But yeah, and then the source code for the actual project itself we'll be able to find here, located at github.com/boyuan12/bit.ly-clone. Since this is basically like you've used bit.ly before, it's URL shortener. Basically, you can shorten the URL. And we're also going to briefly talk about GitHub, which most of you all have accounts. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and get started. And then start coding. Okay. So recall this is really like the standard boilerplate for Flask, if there's really any. But you can see the first line is import statement from Flask, import Flask. Then we got app equals Flask, which you're going to initialize a new Flask class, and it's going to take in the current module that you're on. It's __name __. For those of you interested, what is exactly __name __? You could type in your terminal, what you can do is you can type IPython or just Python, and then if you type __name __, you could see there's __main __. This is basically specify which module I'm currently in. Don't worry about that too much. And then we can start to use decorator. So we can say at app.route, and then we could say /, and then we can define an index function. And then here you can really just say return hello world. And now we just say if name equals to main. And then we're just going to say app.run. All right, app.run. And we're going to say host is 0.0.0. Port is 3000. And then debug mode is true. Okay. All right, so now if you try to run this Flask application, so these are really basic. You don't have to do it, just a quick recap. And then let me open up the browser here. And then paste it here. Whoops. Oops, let me try to select again. And then you can see we see hello world at the top of the screen. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far? So that is essentially what we learned yesterday. I mean, last time. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far? No. Okay. Nice. So now we'll go ahead and start to go ahead and talk about let's talk about database. So start by building an authentication system. Have anybody heard of authentication system before?
No.
All right. Okay. So authentication is register, login. That's the most basic concept of authentication. You can register an account and then you can log in user account is just registered. That's the authentication part. Okay, so so to make stuff simple for now, what you will do is I recommend you to use Visual Studio Code for this one. But let's see. Just by show of hand, how many people are still using Replit? By show of hand, how many people are still using Replit? Okay.
Which hand?
The blue hand are still using Replit. Okay. Okay, this is gonna be a tricky one. Okay, you guys can lower your hand now. So pretty much the majority of the class still using.
Put camera off. No, I think I know how to like make. Yeah, see,
All right, thanks for muting. But this is gonna be a hard one if you're using Replit. It's gonna be hard. But let me just search this real quick. Okay, I think there's still a way.
Did you copy and paste the code?
Yeah, I will just in just a little bit. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so first we'll go and create is you gotta create a new file called db.sqlite3. db.sqlite3. You create a file name like this. I'm just going to type that in the chat if I can find it, which apparently I can't. Okay, there we go. So db.sqlite3. So create a file that names exactly like this, db.sqlite3. And then after you created this file, what you can do is closing this file, close this file, okay? Don't have to do anything with it just yet. But we'll talk about Sqlite 3. So Sqlite 3 is where you will be able to store your store whatever you want to store. You can imagine as a database. So have you heard of database before? Or know a little bit what is database? Okay, so database is basically where you store stuff. You store like a user's username, password, etc. basically. All right, and that's basically what is database. You can store stuff, and then that's happening like underneath, like when you happen to register a new Google account. For basically like whatever account you're new registering in, there must be a place to store it. Otherwise, the machine cannot remember it. That's why we have like database. So to memorize, to remember what is inside of the database. Authentication is best example. Create account and then log into an account. That's a great usage for database. All right. So that's a database. And then now I'm going to talk about how to actually interact with the database. So I'm just going to specify this is SQL structured query language. And then if you've heard of NoSQL before, it's somewhere similar, but not really. So heard of NoSQL, forget about it. It's a little bit similar, but the knowledge itself is completely different. It's a little bit similar in the concept, but all right. So to use Sqlite, it's pretty easy. You can just type import Sqlite 3. Import Sqlite 3, and then in here, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a new connection. So there's two steps when I actually want to interact with the database. First, we need to create a connection to the database. Second, we need to create a new cursor. We can use the new cursor we created to actually edit the database. All right, so in here, what we could do is you can type con equals to Sqlite3.connect. And then in here, we're going to say db.sqlite3. And then we can say c.con, c.cursor, I think. Oops, con.cursor. And then we're going to call this as a c. I'm going to store this as a c. And then now, if you run this again, you can see, you shouldn't see any error. If you don't see any error, that means you connect the database successfully. Okay, that means you connect the database successfully. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about how to actually start to execute some database. What type of the file? Let's see. Structured query language. All right. What does it mean? So Sqlite 3 is a version of Sql. It didn't provide as much like way to store data as it doesn't provide as many categories as other SQL databases may have, but that's just a version of Sql. Structured query language, Sql. Yes, Sql. Sql is like a way to pronounce it. Sql. SQL, Sql, structured query language, and SQL means the same thing. What type of the file is db.sqlite3 Sql. And then can you send the code? Yes, I will. Mine is not working. Kaiser, do you mind if you elaborate on that? What's not working? Kaiser, do you mind? I'm on main.py not working as well. Okay. Okay. Let's see. How about this? Kaiser, could you share your screen really quick?
Okay.
All right.
There.
You forgot the parenthesis after the cursor.
After the cursor.
You forgot parenthesis. And then try to click on run again. And then refresh. It should work. I mean, it didn't see any error. That means everything connected. But yeah. So yeah, it does work. We didn't do anything with the database itself just yet. We didn't do anything with the database itself just yet, but we'll do something. We'll do something with that really quick, just a little bit. Okay, so since majority of you are using Replit, I'm actually not sure about this one. I'm not sure does repo actually support SQL. Let's see.
Can I stop sharing?
What?
Can I stop sharing?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. Does it solve your problem, Andrew, as well? How to spell db.sqlite? Your spell or just I'm gonna copy paste. Okay. This is how do you spell Sqlite 3. Your code has an error. What type is it? Okay, Andrew, does your code works now?
What type of file is the DB Sqlite 3? Is it just like a regular file?
It is just a regular file. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. So okay. So now let's go ahead and talk about SQL really quick. And then to make stuff easier, since most of you didn't actually have using it your local server, so try to go ahead and create a new SQL repo. So everybody, could you please go to repo.it, and then most likely you don't know SQL, so you didn't choose SQL as one of your programming language. So just click on all programming languages, and then click on SQL. And then we're going to talk about that.
Where's all programming languages?
Or all languages, something like that. It should be right here. Yeah, all languages, click on here. Click on here, all languages. And then you could, in here, you could type SQL, SQ, and then you should see Sqlite, and then just click on it. And then you should be able to see something like this. Okay. Something like this.
Then do we restart the whole code?
No. No. We're not restart the whole code. I'm just gonna briefly talk about what is SQL first. So we're gonna interact with like SQL, and then leave the Python repo open. We're gonna switch back in just a little bit. Maybe not in a little bit, but we're not gonna spend like a lot of time talking about SQL. Vera, do you mind if you share your screen really quick?
Sure. Okay, let me share my screen. Is this code correct?
Let me see. Yes, it is. Try to run again. The code itself is correct.
Okay. It says package operation failed every time.
How about this? Hover over pyproject.toml. Let me use annotate. So hover over here.
Oh,
Yep.
here? Okay.
Click on these three dots.
Okay.
Click on delete.
Delete.
Yes. Run again.
It says package operation failed again.
Let me see. From Flask, import Flask.
Can you send the link
Oh, what link?
for the repo?
Okay. I will do it in just a little bit. Let's see. Insertion error. Could you try to create a new REPL? I'm not sure why that happening.
Okay,
But-
let me create a new one.
All right. So let's see. Yeah, so I will share the SQL one in case you cannot open it. But it's right here.
Create new repo.
That's a SQL thing. Could you try to yeah, so just try to create a new REPL and then try to
In SQL.
what?
Do you have to name it the main SQL?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you cannot change the file anyhow anyway, so yeah, so Vera, so try to create a new REPL. Try to create a new Python REPL.
Okay. Python.
Well, you don't have to name it, but
Okay.
okay. Okay. Paste our codes here again. So copy and paste every.
Okay. Wait, let me get on there. Copy. First of all, is there anything you have to put in db.sqlite3?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you're pasting to the wrong one. You're pasting to the SQL one. It should give you an error or not. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. Now it's working.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. Let me try to share my screen again. Okay, so now we'll talk about some SQL specific. SQL specific. So SQL is built on the ideas of tables. SQL is built upon the ideas of tables, and then basically you can imagine a tape. You can imagine the whole SQL database as a bookshelf, and each individual book is a table in SQL, and then the content in that book is like basically what's happening. Okay, it's what is inside of the table. So the table is like a subcategory where you could like organize stuff better. Okay, for example, I want to create a table. So now let's talk about how to create a table. So I want to basically create a table. So I'm gonna write some pseudocode here. Create a table that named called user. And then since this is a table, we usually have, it does have column. And then the language is SQL. Thank you, Jeffrey. So called user, and then each table, of course, will have different columns. And then for now, we'll just go out and create two columns. We'll create two columns. And then we'll just create two columns. And it's going to be username and password. Okay, because each user must at least have a username and have a password to identify themselves. Okay, so username and password. So that's how we can create a table. So now what we want to do is create a table called user. Let's call it users instead. And then have two columns, username and password. So how can I do that? Well, I do that pretty simply actually. But type create table. And in here, what we will do is your table name. So our table name is users. And in here, what we want to do is put the column name. Column name is username. And then we need to specify a type. So we need to specify a type for this to SQL to understand. Okay, probably this field only going to restrict it, for example, numbers only. All right, for example, numbers only. But in this case, we don't want to do that. What we can just do is just type text. And then this guy's going to tell you, okay, it's basically just going to be a normal place where a text can be stored. All right, text can be stored. And then here we'll type password. And then type text as well, because there's no limit of how long should the password be. So text doesn't, it's basically like everything is fine in text, like whatever you type, because everything at the end of the day can be represented as a text. And then there is no limitation on the length of the text that you can type. Okay, so this is how we can create a table. And then if you click on run, and then let's see, probably forgot a semicolon. Okay, let me take a look. Password. Sorry about that. I think this is the correct way that you can create. No, not sure you keep telling. Oh, line 7. Okay, so it's line 10. Okay. Tell me there is a. Why does tell me that? Sorry about that. I'm not sure what would tell me is syntax error. That's really weird. Okay, probably I messed someplace up. Sorry about that. Let me do a quick debug really quick. Create table. Let's see, persons.
A lot of the times it just says near line 7 for the syntax error.
Yeah, that's how I create a table in Sql. Did it?
Could it be an update or something? A glitch?
No, I try in global version. Okay. Okay. I just paste the code, but apparently it does solve the problem. Is it not taking users? I'm not. Users info. Okay. Yeah, I don't know exactly why that is an error, but I just okay. Well, I mean, okay, well, this does work. I cannot understand when the interpreter started yelling at me like that, but let's see. Let's just call this persons then. I'm just gonna call this username text. Password is text as well. Yeah, I don't know why this. Do I need to capitalize it? Wait, what? I don't get this interpreter. But well, I mean, I didn't really change any code, and it works. Probably there's some glitch, but this is how you can create a table in Sql. I'm not sure why it's giving me that errors, but this is how you can create a table in Sql. Basically, you can type create table, your table name, parenthesis, and then you can type, and then in there you can type your row column information. Specifically, is a username. It's a column name, and it's a column name and the type separated by comma. Okay, so this is how you can create a table. And then now let's start to talk about how could you start to add, which I hope it does. Oops. Which I hope it does works a little bit better than create table. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll start to go ahead and insert what we call into a Sql table. So in here we can just say insert into, and then we can reference into the using this users, and basically we want to insert into this users, and then with following information. All right, so we want to insert into, so the syntax is insert into, and then you don't have to capitalize it, but I mean, you don't have to capitalize it, but I recommend it to capitalize it just for like readability. But you can say insert into users, and in here we'll go ahead and specify the column. For example, username and password. And then in here I can say values. What values should it be? So what should be the actual value? So we specify the column, and now let's specify the value. So the value is just going to be this. So make sure you're using single quotation mark. I'm not sure does double quotation marks work. And then here I'm just going to say password. The safetiest password all time. And then now if you run this again, no errors, so that's good. And then you can see it's supposed to insert users into the database. Okay, into the database. All right, so just do a quick recap. What we did is we create a table called users. We insert users, and then we insert a row of data into users. The column name is username, password. The values is Boyuan12 for username, and then password for password. All right. Despite
Is it really a safe password?
Password is the safetiest password at all time.
Really?
It is, because like yeah, but you can see there is a problem though. Does anybody see any problem if we just insert a password as password? Does anybody see any problem beside password itself? But does anybody see any questions? If I just change the password to some of my, this is the safetiest. This is the most safe password at all time. But even if I do something like this, does anybody see some problem that might occur? I just insert a password as a plain text. So just as,
It could
yeah.
confuse it for some code?
What?
It could confuse it for some code?
That's okay. That's actually a good response, a great response actually. It's called Sql Injection if you don't handle it correctly, but for now I'm asking for password itself. Does anybody see some upcoming issue if I just store the password as a plain text?
I think you never defined the word password, so the computer is confused that you did not define password, and so there is no reaction.
So you're afraid that this row didn't insert correctly. Is that what you're worried about?
Not worried, but I'm just giving a suggestion.
Okay. Well, so so you probably don't understand how SQL works, but here's how it works. You don't need to explicitly define any variables. Okay. So you just create a table. The SQL automatically knows that you create a table called users, and then you can reference later here. There is no problem with that. You don't have to define a variable. You don't have to, like in JavaScript, you don't have to like say var table equals this. You don't have to do that. You can just using create table, and then the table name is automatically recognized and say, hey, I see this table name. Then and then it's going to start to reference to that given table. Same apply to column name. You already define that column, and then specify what table is this, and it's just going to automatically says, oh, I do find this username column as well as this password column. What a great day for me. And then you can see it said values. Here is what you need to actually define, and then you can define my username here and then the password here. But what I'm trying to get here is if there is an issue when you still store as a plain text. So basically, what happened when the database get hacked? What happened if somebody hacked into our database and then they stole the information? What happened? So obviously we lost all the users' information, and then but the hackers also gained the users' information. And you can see, and then the most important thing is if you are not using what you're supposed to do in a cybersecurity point of view is you need to create a password for every account that you create on internet. But to be honest, nobody's really doing that. So now once they see your password, the hacker get access to a password, what they can just do is they can just go to every account and they can start to try your password out. So this is basically like a hacking, and then you can see that your password, since we're storing plain text, the hacker going to immediately knows it. Okay, but there is a workaround with this. There is a workaround. We still need to store password as a plain. We still need to store password as a text. But what if we just do something like this? We could say something like this, and then we could just imagine if we were creating a variable. We could create a variable like a bunch of random hashes that nobody except us really understands it. Okay. And then this kind of equals to whatever user's password is. And then later, what we were going to do is we're actually just going to reference this hash. So instead of storing the password itself, I'm going to store the hash of the password. And then even if the hacker gains access to it, they won't be able to know the password itself, because this hashing algorithm, there's no way to decode this. There is only a way to encode. So what I mean by that is there's only a way to change password. So this is ABC, right? ABC, and then you could encode it. You could encode into hash. You could encode it into hash. But you cannot decode it. You cannot decode it. So you can only encode into hash, but you can't decode it. So thus going to make the hacker's life harder to figure out what your password is. Still, if you're using simple password, what they can do is just what we call a brute force. So trying out sort of a combination between letters, word, and stuff like that, and try to figure out like what does hash mean. So you could only encode this. And then you can imagine what happened when the user actually fill out a form, but we didn't get the hash. Since we cannot like decode this, what we could do is we could encode another version of the user's password. And then we could encode this again. And then we will get the same hash if they're the same. Otherwise, we'll get a different hash. So that's how password hash is used. And then this is a way to store the information. Of course, there is still one more downside to it. The database still hackable. What we talk about eventually is to not store password at all, but still be able to create an authentication system by integrating OAuth. For example, signing with Google, signing with Yahoo, signing with Microsoft, signing with Apple, etc. We can use that later, and then that's a concept we're going to talk about in the later projects we're going to do. But this is essential ideas for password hashing. And they're going to take a look how can we implement that as well, just a little bit. But now let's talk about how can we actually select a row. So we can select a row by specifying select star asterisk from your table name, in this case users, where username equals to here, my username here. And if I run this again, oh God, that's just so great. Let's see. Do you have to? Okay. But now, if I just try in the console on the right-hand side, what you can see is some information get printed out, my username, and my password hash here. Okay. So this is how we can select something from the database using select query, select star from users, where username equals to some data here. All right. If we don't want to select everything, we could just say select, instead of asterisk, we can specify exactly what column do we want to select. For example, when we select password itself, we could just say select password from users, where username equals to put my username here. All right. So that's the idea of password hashing and how can we select something from the table. But does anybody have any questions so far? All right, I see 2 hands.
Yes.
So, all right, yeah, go for it.
Can you copy your code into chat?
Yes, I can. And Kyle, same question. All right. All right, let's see. You're welcome. All right, does anybody have any questions so far? No.
No.
All right. So, well, yeah, Kessler.
I said no.
Oh, no? Okay. All right. Well, I saw you were going to say something, but okay, sure. So, now you can see, we see something like select query. So now we talk about create table, insert, select. All right. So that's like these 3 most common things we're going to use. But one more thing we could commonly use, but we're not going to bother to really implement that, is how can we change a password? So how can we change password? I don't know why I write it down, but sure. So how can we change password? Well, a way we can do it is to delete the row completely and then add a new row with a new username, with the same username, but updated a password hash. But it's actually an easier way to do it. We can just use update query. See here, what we can type is update, and then update, it's going to say taking a user, taking a database, and say update users. That's what that database is going to do in order to set a specific column to something else. So for example, under set password, for demonstration purpose, I'm just going to say password. And then we're going to say where. So where clause is the condition. So you could notice that we add a where here. This means we only want to select the row where this condition matches. And we can say where username equals to username here. And if we run this, there keeps saying some errors happening, which I don't know why. Let's see, command. Okay. Well, there's keep some. Let's see. Let's keep some question that cannot get rid of it. But now, if we run this, keep saying this console is so weird. Okay.
I'm getting a syntax error.
Yeah, I don't know why the select query doesn't work. I don't know why the select query doesn't work. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. But yeah. So for select query, try to type it in the console on the right instead of in the code itself. Apparently, it cannot do that. Apparently, like every time when I paste this exactly the same code to the console, it surprisingly let's see, if I run this, you can see it works, but if I just uncomment this line, and then it won't work. But now let's try to add our update. So you can say update users, set password goes to my password, set password to password save, and then you can say where username here, and then add a semicolon at the end. And then if you want to, you can try to reselect this. Select this row, and then you can see the password column for my username get updated from this random hash to the password. Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions so far? Anybody? No? All right. So that's like the most common operation.
No.
All right, good. So let's see if I remember the final one. So how to delete something? Like I said, delete users. I believe we could just add a weird. I didn't do SQL a lot nowadays since I use like ORM instead, which we'll talk about later. But I didn't do SQL, so I'm a little bit rusty on SQL now. But delete users. Here we can just say where let's give up. We can say where username equals to my username here. Okay, yeah, I think I forgot delete from. So try to add delete from. And then now if I want to try to select again, you can see there's no row returning because we delete that. Delete the existing row which have username Boyuan12. But yeah, that's a basic. And then that's a basic. And then we call this create, read, update, delete. So it can create insert basically is create a new column. We can read by using select, read the data, retrieve the data, and we can using U as update, D for delete. So it's also called CRUD operation. But yeah, so now this is 4:20 Pacific Standard Time. So I'll go ahead and proceed with a break, and then we're gonna resume the class back in 4:30. If you got any questions, feel free to put in the chat as well. All right.
Can you paste the code?
Yes, I can. You could really just go to my repo here, and then you don't have to like bother to ask me every time, but it's fine. But so you don't have to like ask me. You can just take a look at that. Okay, well that's like apparently everything I just wrote, but is there a recording? I don't even know where the recording is going to, so yeah. It does seem to record, but I'm not sure where the recording is going to. Lucas, line 14. Yeah, ignore the line 14. It's supposed to be in the comment. You are not supposed to like actually execute that as a SQL code. Yeah.
Hello?
It's break, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so as of my time, I think it's 4:30 now. So I guess we'll go ahead and resume the class. Let's see. So I cannot hear anything. I hope you can hear now. And it says syntax error, line 16. Yeah, line 16 supposed to don't have a syntax error. You could try that again, but yeah. All right. So now you can see we take a look of some basic SQL stuff. And now we'll take a look at is how to actually start to create some code that it's going to enable us to do basically like to do different things. So first of all, what I want you to do is so to make it easier, what you need to do is you can click on Heroku.com. So if you could go to type Heroku and go to Heroku.com, and then most likely you need to sign up an account. So if you guys could make sure you can sign up for an account. And then once you sign up for an account, and then I think that's basically it for now. So I'm going to wait for 2 minutes for you guys to sign up for an account. We're not going to immediately use this, but it's good to get everything just set up before we get started. So
Can you copy and paste the link into the chat?
Okay, although it's really like less than 10 character, but
Have it, right?
it's heroku.com. I'm going to type it as well. Okay, so that's the link. Make sure you can create an account, and then yeah, we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk, and then yeah, we'll just talk in a little bit after everybody finish.
What do you put in for company name?
Hello? Is anybody still here?
Hi, hello.
I can't hear anything.
What language do we use for the
Yeah,
sign-in?
Yeah, what was the language?
Python. Python. Yeah, sorry about that. I just muted accidentally. Sorry about that, but yeah, it's Python. Python it is. And then you should see a screen like this. Basically, maybe you have empty here, but then you could yeah. So just make sure you have Heroku account, and then make sure you know like you know like what's your username, what's your password, but that's about it. We're not gonna worry about in next class. We're
Is your email your username?
What?
What's your username?
No, you're gonna create your own username.
It doesn't say, I think. I don't know. I'll check.
Okay, you say you want to share screen? Yeah, sure.
What should we choose as our primary development language?
Python?
Okay.
Do we all have to sign up?
Yes.
The process of signing up for me is complete. What do I do?
For now, just leave it there. We are not going to actually use it for today, but just in case we will, for but yeah, just make sure I have Heroku account set up, but everything else is fine. And then just make sure you have Heroku account so that we don't have to worry about in the next class. But then what we can do is we can start to write some code after you are done. All right. So okay. So let me share my screen again. So how many people is actually using VS Code? Just out of curiosity. If you want to raise your hand, you can. If you're using it like any external code editor. Nobody? Nobody?
What'd
Like,
you say?
how many people are not using Replit?
Well, sometimes I use Replit, but I also use PyCharm.
Okay. What are you using right now?
I use PyCharm also.
Okay. What are you guys using right now? Are you guys using Replit? Like
Yeah, Replit.
Replit. Okay. Replit gonna make it tricky. Okay. Well, so now let's go ahead and get started with some authentication. So yeah, you can skip the company name. I don't think it's not required, but okay, so all right, so now we'll go and get started first. So now in here, we'll go ahead and who's this gonna be a tricky one? If you guys can try to, if you guys using Replit, skip this part. But if you guys using external code editor, actually no, let's just forget about that right now. Let's just forget about that right now. Okay, so scratch whatever I just said. But now in here, we're gonna develop our first feature. We'll go ahead and call that authentication. Okay, authentication. So so let me start by asking you guys, how many route do you think for authentication purpose? How many route do you think we need?
What's route?
So like this is a route. So basically this means how many external it's hard to describe it out. So it's basically like you like if you go to 0.0.0.0 colon 3000, if you go to slash, that's a route, slash Apple, that's another route. It's basically like a place within your web application. And then we call that a route, basically. But yes, anyway, how many route do you guys think we need to have? Okay, it turns out that we need to at least have 2 route, right? So we need a route for register. And then for now, I'm just gonna pass. And we also need a route for login. Right? That's the 2 minimum route we need to have. All right. How about this? So does anyone want to tell me what's the process for registering an account? By your experience, what's the process for registering an account?
You need to use a username and password and also an email address.
So that's a column name that we need. And then I'm just going to create a new text file, and then we're going to call this pseudocode. Okay, so for columns, so like in a SQL database, you can imagine that we create a table called users. And then within users, we might have stuff like username, email, and password. All right. But okay, that's great. So that's a field that you want to fill in. So, but does anybody like could you describe the process when sign up? Okay, so they send a confirmation email. We're not gonna do that in Python just yet. it's like if we have time, we can add on to that, but we are not going to do that just yet.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the Python? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is a SQL part. So what you can do is if you really, if any of you actually trying to sign up an account, you see first is you need to fill out the form.
Can you post the code?
Okay, I didn't really type anything really yet, but. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So in here, you can see the sign up process. You're gonna fill out a form that's going to ask you username, email, password, probably confirm password as well, just to make sure you do remember your password. So we need to make sure we don't have goldfish. We try to sign up account, which they only have 7-second memory. So these are your signups. So fill out form. The form sent to the backend server, sent to the server. And then for your perspective, for user's perspective, now you are going to redirect to somewhere else. All right, so that's your perspective. That's the user's perspective. And I can sign up an account right now. And then you can see this is really what happened underneath the hood. In fact, if you don't know programming, this step, maybe you don't even know this step. You will just assume something magical happened. But now it's really up to us to figure out what should happen when a form is sent to the server. Okay, what happened when a form sent to the server? So, and then now we'll go ahead and talk about the stuff that nobody sees, like the user doesn't see at least. And this is called like underneath the hood. So form sent to the server, right? So what should happen the first? What should we do the first when? What should happen the first when we receive the data? And then what should we do in Python first when we receive the data? Like absolutely first thing first. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys some hint. Username is required, email is required, password is required, and confirm password is required as well. All right, does anybody, okay, does anybody have any idea? So does anybody want to guess? Want to guess what should be the first step? Okay, so the first step we need to actually do is first to check whether user filled out username, email, password, and confirm password. This is what we need to do the first thing first. We need to actually check that whether a user had been filled out a username, an email, password, and confirm password. So the user must be filled out of these 4 fields. All right, and then we can proceed to the next step. What do you guys think is the next step after we check the user does provide everything that we need to the backend server? One more thing we need to validate before we can do any like SQL stuff yet. This is relate to confirm password. So what does confirm password do? So could anybody?
It makes sure like you want to have that password.
Yes, exactly. So what we could do is check whether password equals to confirm password. So you need to check whether the password is the confirm password indeed. And if it is, then proceed. Otherwise, probably we can just return an error message. Okay, now number 3. Now the step is getting a little bit complicated. So now we finish validate the user. Okay, now we make sure the user does is on the data. We make sure that user fill out all the fields that we need. A user also type the correct password. You don't really need to know code.txt. I'm not going to bother to really paste it, but because this is not required, you can just like look at it. Like we are not going to actually like use this file, but I'm gonna paste it anyway. And then Jeffrey, I noticed your hands up. So do you have any questions?
Oh, for like number 3, do you have to like send a confirmation email?
We're not going to actually do that part just yet. It's an optional feature that we can implement later, but that's not absolutely required.
Okay.
Like most company does that, but still some handful of company don't do it because it trusts you, despite they shouldn't. What we can do actually now is first we need to check. You guys see now we're actually checking stuff, but check whether username exists in the database. Because if you think about how we sign in, is a username can really only be unique. You cannot have like colliding usernames because it just it shouldn't happen at all. But then we have like check username exists in the database or not. And then if it does, then we probably want to return error message. Otherwise, the project's going to move on. And then what we want to do is probably in here, I can just say generate a hash for the password. As we talked about it a little bit earlier, a hash is basically another representation for the password, except it's in a secure way. So even if our database information leaked, the hacker will have a hard time to figure out what it is. All right, generate hash. And then now, finally, what we could do is insert into users table, and then users table with all the required information. All right, it's just hear my voice. So okay, here we go. So insert users table, insert into users table, and then what we could do is usually the most logic thing we can do is log the user in, and then return and then redirect to somewhere else. All right. Actually, no, we don't need to do this since that's the third step here. So now what I hope you can take away from this class is in programming, you will see that there's really lots of stuff happening underneath the hood that you probably don't realize. Like before I don't know program, I don't know that there's so many steps that's happening. Excuse me for my phone, but I don't know how many steps. I don't know there's many steps, like 6 steps, just list a few. Not even adding like complicated example, like make sure like sending confirmation email and stuff like that. But yeah, so you guys, it's really a complicated, it's really like really complex. And I hope you can like don't take everything for granted, because like, you know, so many things happen underneath the hood. All right, but this is how we can check whether username, then we can redirect to somewhere else. Okay, so that's the sign up part. Now let's talk about login. So what we have is fill out a form, have username, and then probably email, and then they can choose one, username/email, and then password. I don't think, let me just remove email for now, so email is not necessarily required for this web applications. Yeah, so we're gonna make it a little bit easier. So we're gonna fill out a form that's going to contain 2 fields, username and password. And the second step, It's first sent to the server. And the 3 is redirect to somewhere else. All right, so what should happen when we try to log in a user? What do you think should happen first? Since we now have the signup example at the top, what do you think should happen first? What do you think should happen first when the form sent to a server? Let me give a hint. It's in the sign up part as well.
Was that like a form to an email or something?
What did you just say?
Is it like a form to the email?
I cannot hear it correctly, but it's not checking if user name exists. It's actually to check whether user filled out username and password. We need to make sure we have the data first before we do any processing yet. Can you paste the code again? You mean the Python code? Yes, I will. I'm not really going to bother to paste pseudocode.txt. If you can see it, then that's basically my purpose. It's a way to just basically like organize everything. But first is check whether user filled out username and password. Then second, what we could do now is check if username exists. Now what we could do is even better is we could generate a hash for the password. And then here we can just say check if a user with that username and password hash exist. Actually, no, we need to do it in this way. We actually need to check. Yeah, we need to check if username exists, and then if does, then we need to check password hash. There's actually a function called check password hash, and then against user's password. And then what we could do is log the user in, which if you think about it, log the user in is another mystery step that we didn't really talk about. But I'm not sure we have time to talk about today. But we should be able to have time to talk about today. But and redirect somewhere else. All right, so that's the idea that we need to do. And now let's get started. Okay, get started. And then to if you are using Replit, so how about this? So I'm going to show if you are using a local server first. If you are using like a local text editor, and then you can type Python or Python 3, and then have -i app.py. All right. Whoops, that's not actually what I intended to do. So let me go and comment this out really quick. And then I'm going to completely exit out just in case. Okay, so there we go. Okay, let's see. So if you're using local text editor, you can type Python 3 -i app.py at your terminal or PowerShell. And then here, I will just want to say import C. Okay, say from app import C. Okay, yeah. So from app import C. And then here we want to run the following command. C.execute create table users. And then we'll probably want username and password, which is username is text, password is text as well. And then we actually need to also go and say from app import con. And then here I want to say con.commit. We need to actually be able to commit to it. So whenever you're interacting with the database, make sure you actually commit the changes. Otherwise, the changes may not just show up. And then hopefully now what we should see is you can see create users table with username and then password. Okay, that's essentially about it for today's feature. So we're going to implement authentication. And then if you're using Replit, what you can do is first remove these two, remove the EF underscore name underscore equals to blah, 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 remove this part. And then just at here, just type c.execute, insert, create table, users, username text, password text as well. Okay. So, and then make sure to type contact commit. And then once you execute that, if you see no error, and then make sure to delete these two lines. Okay, make sure to delete these two lines. But yeah, so if you're using a local code editor, go ahead and type Python 3-i app.py, and then say from app import C, from app import con, and then type c.execute, c.execute, create table users, parentheses username text, password text, and then from app import con.commit with parentheses, and then now you're done. Okay, if you're using Replit, just add these two lines as the top, and then run the file. Run the file. All right. So I will give everybody 1 minute to do all of these. And if you want to, if you finish, please raise your hand. So I know most of you are going to get finished soon, but if you finish, feel free to just raise your hand so I know you are finished, and it's time that I can move on. So make sure you are going to. So we're going to create a new table for the database essentially.
Can you copy the code in chat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here it is. In the text, in chat, already did. That's that two line. That's your need. That's the only two line. I'm not gonna pause. If you want the whole thing, here it is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so this is the Python now. Okay, it's not SQL anymore. Just so everybody knows. If there's a problem, please type in the chat. Lucas, are you sure you're using Python or SQL? And then it shouldn't have any problem if you're using Replit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Are you using Replit, Lucas?
Yes.
Okay. There shouldn't be any problem for you. You just run multiple times, the problem gonna solve. But you just really need this to execute it once, basically. But, yeah. So does anybody finish creating the table yet?
No.
No. Feel free to let me know if you guys need any help, or you can just share your screen. You guys can just share your screen if you need any help. And then please raise your hand after you finish with creating users table in the database.
My code has an error.
Because an error. Okay. Could you share your screen? Any okay. Oh, who's first? Kate or okay? I guess Vera now shares first. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Just now I can. Could you click on the db.sqlite3 file?
Yeah. This is what it looks like.
Scrolls down. Okay. Scroll. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're done. So, go to main.py again,
Okay.
and you can remove the line 4 and line 5.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
that's
couldn't
what
hear
you,
you clearly.
what? Just remove line 4 and line 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I run again?
I don't. I mean, sure, but no. Is that line 4 or line 5? I'm sorry about that. Could you undo it by typing Control Z or something?
Let me see.
Control Z or Command Z. Okay, sorry about that. It's actually line 7 and line 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And run.
Yeah. So notice that you comment out line 22 and line 23. So just like remove, uncomment these 2 lines. So remove these 3 quotation marks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So Kate, okay. So Kate, all right, Kate, do you have any questions? It works now. Okay, like nice. Does anybody finish to set up the data? Jeffrey, do you have any questions?
I have an error on line 7.
Share your screen really quick. Let me just double check the error.
I can't share for some reason.
Could you unshare your screen, Vera?
Okay, sure, but I think somebody was annotating on my screen and there were a bunch of red scribbles.
Yeah, there's no way I can know that. I'm not sure how can I forbidden somebody to do that. But yeah, just please don't do that next time. It's gonna make a mess on the screen. But yes, Jeffrey, you can share your screen now.
Oh, okay, there. Okay, so it's just this.
Scroll down.
It's
Okay, yeah. Could you click on db.sqlite3 file? Open this. Yeah. Okay, scroll down. Yeah. No, I think you. Yeah. So go back to min.py, the Python file, and then go ahead and remove line 7 and line 8.
Just get rid of them.
Just remove, yeah, line 7, line 8. Yeah, just delete.
Okay.
All right. Yep. And then notice that you comment out line, the bottom line 24, line 25. If you uncommented, this error will go away. Yeah. It won't say we cannot reach your repo anymore. Yeah.
Oh, so you get uncommented? Like, why is there 3 comments though?
That's for multi-line comments. So like between them are all comments. So instead of the single line comment using hashtag, this is a multi-line comment basically.
Do I have to get all of them like this?
Yep. Yep, and now you can see it works.
Someone's annotating.
Let's see who's annotating. Can somebody just stop annotating?
I'm gonna just keep on clearing.
Okay, well, please just don't annotate next time, because then I will have to Google like how to to see who's annotating. But yeah.
I know how to do it. I know how to do it.
Okay, good. All right, so now we finish creating these, and then we'll create the users table. If you see a table error called user table users already exist, you can just remove it. Remove line 7, line 8, and I don't think there is a way to do it. Okay. Yep. All right. So now you can remove line 7, line 8, and then now you can see we got our database set up. And then let's see, what's our first step for sign up? Well, here is actually the additional part. So recall that on the last time we briefly talked about some different HTTP request method. For example, we can get different request method. Oops. And here by typing request. So from Flask, import Flask, comma request as well. And here we'll just say if request dot method equals to post, which means that is sending some information that user cannot see or via post. I'm gonna assume the form get filled out, and then we can pass some information. But then otherwise, if it's just get, we'll return some HTML templates. But Jeffrey, do you have any questions? All right. So where we can just return HTML template where the user can register. All right. And then does anybody remember how to create an HTML template? How to render an HTML template in Flask? Does anyone remember? Nobody? Okay, so it's actually, it's a little bit complicated. First, you need to create a new folder, and then you can call this templates. And then within the templates, you could create your index dot. Let's create sign up, or let's just call this register dot HTML. Excuse me, register.html. And then in here, let's go also import render template as well, where we can go ahead render an HTML template. And then just gonna copy and paste. And here we're just going to say return render template. And then in the register.html. And then let me go ahead and uncomment. Let's see. Let me go ahead and uncomment out this line. All right. So now what I can try to do is I can run Python 3 app.py. And then I'm open up my my browser. And here it's just going to say 0.0.0.0 colon 3000. And then let's see if it works. If we can go to a browser and type it. Okay, just gonna use your my browser, and then I'm not gonna show what happened in the browser because you guys should see the same thing. But you go to a specific route. You could go to 0.0.0.0 colon 3000 slash register. You should see an empty page. You should see an empty page. That is like absolutely nothing, because we haven't put anything inside of register.html just yet. Okay. And now what we could type is you can start to add some HTML content. And in here we're going to say body, and then let's just create a form. And then And then I'm going to set this form's method to post because that's what we usually do to securely transmit some information about a user, especially when we involving password. And then in here, it's just going to say input type is text. And then let's go and create a placeholder as well. Placeholder. What's a placeholder? We can call this username. And then placeholder. And in name, we can just say username. Basically. So we got input type is text. Placeholder is username. Name is username. All right. And then what we can do is input type is text again. And then let's see. No, and then what we could do is put type equals to password. And then placeholder is password. So remember we're doing the sign up form. And then name is password. And then our cert field should be input type equals to password again. Placeholder equals to confirm your password. And the name is going to be confirmation. And the recall, we're going to actually use name to get like what's your user's response, basically. When you
Can you post the code?
Yeah, I will post the code in just a little bit. And then name, I'm just going to say confirmation. All right. All right, so just copy and paste the code here. Actually, forgot one more thing we need to do is input type equals submit. So I want to submit the form. Submit the form now. And then now we can do some backend checking, like follow all the pseudocode that we created. Okay. So, but now notice that. Yep. Yes. What?
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 Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll mute that person.
What?
Jeffrey's being weird.
No, I'm having a class. Call me later, okay?
Okay, there we go.
Being weird.
Let's see. All right. So now you can
Somebody's
see
being weird.
That's fine. So now you can see you got a form here. And notice that we don't actually have a line break set up. We don't have a line break, so it's going to look really ugly, but it's fine for now. And then now, if you go ahead and visit the stash register route again, you should see something like this. And then you can see username, password, confirming password. So username, password here as well. All right. Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. So now we'll go ahead and implement our sign up. So what should happen when the form actually gets submitted? Well, the first thing what we need to do is back to our pseudocode. The first thing we need to do is actually check whether the user filled out these things or not. So here we can just say, see, in app.py, what we could say is if request.form.get, and this is a way to recall to get the data of the form, and we can say if request.form.get, let's see. If request.form.get if request, actually we'll say if not request.form.get. So if we don't get the information, which is username or request.form.get, let me say password or request.form.get, confirmation. So these are the recall the three fields that we must to provide. And here just a return. Maybe we can say return 400. Please fill out all fields. Okay, 400 is an error code that basically means something wrong, and it's most likely the client's fault. So whoever's filled out this form. Okay, and then in the register, what we could type is, and then let's follow the second step. Check whether password equals to confirm password. So here you can say if request.form.get username is not equals to request form.get confirmation. Actually, no. What is the username? Here should be password. We're checking whether the two passwords are the same. And then here, if it is not equals to, then we can just say return 400 error code. And then here, just going to say, actually, I think we can do something like this. Add a 400 here. And then here, we're going to say something like confirmation, password confirmation doesn't match. All right, so if request, again, if it doesn't match, let's see. Oops. If the confirmation doesn't match with each other, I'm just going to say password doesn't match. Then what we want to do is check whether the user already exists in the database. So now we can run c.execute. Recall this is the code that we run when we try to get something. And then when we try to actually execute any SQL commands. And here we're just going to say select star from users, where username is colon, notice that colon here, and then we'll say username. And then here we got a dictionary as parameters. So notice that it's colon here. The reason we use colon is because something called Sql Injection. It basically means that if a user or a hacker fill our form that is including some SQL information, it's going to break the whole website. It's going to break the whole website, and then thus they can do some malicious stuff with it. So we don't want to interpret literally, but we want to parse it through some technique that avoids SQL injection. So this basically is a way to handle SQL injection by using parameter. Just add a colon in front of it. And here you can just say username is request the form.get username. All right. And then at the end, I actually need to say .fetch all. So fetch all responses. And then we'll say if length. So for length, so it's going to return you a tuple, a list of tuple, if it does exist. So say if the length of that list is not equals to 0, which means it does fetch some data back, which means the user does exist. You want to return user already exists. 400 error. All right, user already exists. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start to generate password hash, because recall that we don't want to literally like just store the plain text of the password, because once our password data leaked, it's going to break everything. So here we'll go ahead and say from workzuck.security. We're going to import generate password hash and check password hash. We'll go ahead use these two functions. So workzuck.security, import generate _ password _ hash, and then check password hash. Basically, we can use this to generate a password hash for us. And then let's generate a password hash. Here, just going to say password hash. And in here, we're just going to say generate password hash. And we're going to put a password in it. We'll put a password in it. So the password is just going to be request, the form.get, whatever the user's password is. And then the method, so let me double check what method are we going to use. Yes, Vera?
Can you copy the code into chat?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
the
thinking
Python part?
Yeah, I will copy the code after I finish like this entire route.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then let's see. Okay, here's the method that we're going to use. I can never remember this part. pbkdf2 : SHA-256. This is basically the method. This is basically the method that we're going to use. Essentially, the method. What algorithm are you using? It turns out that there is an algorithm called pbkdf2 : SHA-256. So that's the algorithm. Or how should we hash the password use? And then now let's go ahead and provide a salt length equals to 8. All right, so you don't have to worry about like all these stuff in detail. This basically is configuration about what kind of password hash should we generate. And then let's do everything really quick. So since we only have like a few minutes left. And then here we can just say insert into the users table. So here you can say c.execute, insert into users, right? And then we're gonna provide username and password. The values is going to be username. We're gonna recall we're using parameter password. And then username is just going to be username. Password is going to be the password hash. All right, remember to commit the change if I make modification to the database. And then finally, we will go.
Can you post the code?
Yeah, I'll post code, in fact, right now, and we'll return success and the code 200. All right, I will go ahead and post this register part. To our buddy. So this is how we can go ahead and start to create a user, basically. Since we don't have many time left, I'm not going to continue. But yes, Vera, do you have any questions?
Oh, no, not anymore. Sorry, I accidentally left my hand up.
It's fine, no problem. Okay, so now are we done? In just a little bit, I'm gonna finish stuff up really quick. And then now if you go ahead and go to register route.
When I try to run, it says I can't reach my REPL.
Down the bottom part, if name equals to this underscore thing.
Yeah.
Then it should work. Should I refresh it, see if it works? But this is the.
Oh, it works now. It works.
Okay. Yeah. So now let me go ahead and run this thing really quick.
Excuse me?
Yep.
My code has errors.
What error do you have?
Should I share my screen?
What error do you have?
Oh, it just says on the right, trace back most recent call last, : file main py, line 1 in module at app root,
Okay.
register, name error, name app is not defined.
Okay, well, since the class is almost over, I just want to finish this demonstration really quick. I will go ahead, help you, and then I'm not sure if you have exactly the same code, it should be fine, but let me just start to type some username, and I'm going to hope there's no bug, which is never true when I create any kind of program. And if you click on submit, whoops. See, our first bug, I think I forgot. Oh, shoot. Yeah. I think I forgot to add here. So in here, you actually need to provide a list as a additional parameter. And then you say we support get and post. Otherwise, the post automatically going to get forbidden because we're not there because it thinks that we don't want post be able to do accept post basically. But now hopefully, cross fingers, hope it works. Let's see. So if I try to create correct credentials. Okay, oh my God, seriously? I'm not even, okay. Okay, well, just a sec. So weird. My finger, hopefully it works. All right, let me fill out my username, password, confirm my password so I enter all the correct information. Okay, it asked me to fill out field. Well, I guess I will do the demonstration tomorrow in the next class whenever it is on Wednesday, I think. If not, okay, we're not, and add a not here. So make sure you add not before the or, like during the conditional checking. But then if we try to run that again, come on now, hopefully it will work. Well, no, okay, well, that's a failure demo. I will try to figure out what's wrong with it, but it's somewhere wrong with the condition part. I will talk about that in the next class, since we don't have many time left. But again, thanks for attending this class, and then thanks for attending. So you guys' homework for today is to create some fast web application that involves. Actually, let's not leave any homework for now. I'm gonna leave some homework on Wednesday. But for now, thanks for attending to this class. And then, yes, that's it for today's class.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks for teaching us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, bye.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Very well.
All right, bye.
That was me.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for
Bye.
teaching.